Thank you, Jeremy Whitaker and the group. How about giving him a hand? Also, if you did not get your programs, look at your programs on the back side. There's some interesting information there with the Democratic positions on some things you may want to be interested in, and looking at that. We're going to get started next with our speakers. The next speaker is Ryan Christopher. He's a small business owner and also a pastor. He's going to talk about the impacts of regulation, national debt on small business. Here's what I'm going to tell you, is what we are seeing is when they cannot control you through taxes, they're going to control you through regulation. They're going to tax your dog, tax your car, tax everything that you have, and then they're going to regulate that to the point of controlling you and what's going on. And it is crushing the American small business in a way that has never been, because you have state, local, and federal regulations that are crushing the small business, which is the heart of the American economy. And that's something that you've got to look at and got to realize that it's the jobs that are being lost because of the regulation that's there. So we're going to ask Ryan, come on up and give him a hand, if you will.
Guys, I appreciate this opportunity. I want to say something just starting out that is not on my teleprompter, but I do want to say something real quick. Folks, $7,000 went into this. I barely know the people that invited me here. We came, we talked with one another, we believe the same things. God brought us together. But $7,000 into this event. A beautiful day, a beautiful stage, tremendous music, tremendous speakers. Folks, this field ought to be full. This field ought to be full with patriots who want to do something about this next election. I certainly hope, friends, and I believe it will be a good election. I believe it will be a good election. But friends, we better hope that more show up on that day than they've showed up today. Friends, let me say something else too. God said he would always keep a remnant. That means that though the people will turn away, though the people who said they believed in him would turn away, there would always be a remnant. So friends, today, those people who are here today, though not spiritual in nature in entirety, you are a remnant. You're the people who will come out and sit through the sun, through the wind. You'll come out and listen to speakers you may or may not enjoy. You're the ones who will fight. You're the ones who will vote. You're the remnant. Get everyone you possibly can to go out and vote against this regime. Guys, my pawpaw, and pawpaw is Southern for granddaddy. My pawpaw, he used to tell me stories about World War II. He was a vet. He's passed on now. But he was a vet, and he would tell me stories, and just like your granddad or dad used to tell you stories, those stories would get bigger each and every time he told them. He'd get smarter, he'd get stronger. He whipped this guy, he whipped that one. But some of the stories he told, he would stop, and he'd stop laughing, and he'd stop giggling, and he would talk about the times that he would go into combat. He may have lost a friend. And suddenly he'd talk about how anxious he was, how fearful he was. Well, friends, right now we're about to begin a new war. And that war, friends, doesn't necessarily bring guns to it. It's a war against an ideology. It's a war just like the music that they just talked about a minute ago. It's a war against powers and principalities. It's not just against people. Socialism is an evil thing. Socialism is not just politics. Socialism, friends, is evil. Alexander the Great used to do something in warfare. What he would do was, whenever he had to retreat, which was very seldom, but whenever he would have to retreat, he would go in, he would tell his armorers, he would say, you build me some armor, but you build these helmets bigger than normal. You build them so that they would fit a 7 or 8 foot man. And you build the armor that's around them to fit that 7 or 8 foot man. And as we're retreating, I want you to lay it on the ground behind us. And what would happen is those armies would come toward Alexander the Great and see this on the ground, and suddenly they would be fearful. Psychological warfare. Scared that maybe the army they were about to encounter was 7 and 8 foot tall men. But you see, that's what's happening today. The media makes us believe we will lose. Our public schools make us believe that we will lose. The radios make us believe that we will lose. The court systems overturn the things that we vote for. Folks, when will we believe that we can in fact change things? When will we believe that we in fact can be the 300 million who can do something about a few hundred? Right now, just a few men and women in Washington tell us what to do. Right now, regulations are at an all-time high. Right now, over 2,700 rather, regulations are waiting to be voted on. 2,700. The reason they're not voted on right now is there is election coming up. And folks, I can't go over 2,700, but let me go over just a few for you. Let me go over just a couple for you. This is just in the area of the environment. The EPA is delaying job-killing regulations to aid Obama's re-election. We already pay up to 24% more for utilities thanks to Obama. These rules cost between $300 and $400 billion a year. That's job killers. Folks, when our president will stand in a debate and say that $4 a gallon gasoline is good for the economy, he's an idiot. I'm in small business. Every time I get in a vehicle and every time I drive, it costs me. Every time your groceries are brought to the grocery store, every time you buy $4.50 corn pops from the grocery store, it's because gas prices are high. Let's do something about it. Not just coal plants under the Clean Air Act, but churches, schools, restaurants, and hospitals will be regulated. Seems to be the EPA wants to regulate the amount of poop that your cows can emit. That's no joke. We'll talk about that in just a minute. New regulations nearly eliminate coal as a fuel option. He's shut down more than 500 coal plants, but yet he says he's pro-coal, and yet we sit here with an empty field. Farms will have to pay a fee for every ton of emissions it's responsible for. Folks, the EPA estimates that over 37,000 farms and ranches will be subject to the gas permits at an average cost of $23,000 per farm. Folks, this isn't about the environment. This is about taking control. This is about taking control of everything that you believe America to be. A new ozone standard. $90 billion annually, a new ozone standard will cost. 7.4 million jobs to be voted on in 2013 that we'll lose. And I ask you now, are we living in an alternative universe? Are we living somewhere where they just don't get it? Are we living in a nation where we say, okay, just as long as you'll give me my money, as long as you'll give me my check, as long as you'll give me what's mine, as long as I can get fat and happy, I don't care what you do with my liberty? Has it come to that point? We say to ourselves, maybe not. 50% of the nation says, that's exactly right. Fracturing for oil will no longer be legal. The EPA is set up to take over control of all bodies of water in the U.S., including your lake and pond on your personal property. New coal ash would cost up to $316,000. New rules against coal ash would cost up to 316,000 jobs. The new EPA regulations will regulate the amount of dust you can kick up on your farms. Meaning, you drive your nice truck around on your farm, if it kicks up dust, there's going to be a little ferry from the government there to tell you how much you can kick up and how much you will be fined. It's on its way. Just give Obama another election. I was supposed to talk about a deficit. Friends, with hundreds and hundreds of new regulations around the corner, our jobless claims will skyrocket. Government handouts will multiply exponentially. Our deficit will explode and our economy will collapse. Folks, let me tell you something. The idea is to make our economy collapse. Maybe some of you in the remnant understand, and I hope you do. The Federal Reserve is not a government entity. The Federal Reserve are private banks. They've done everything they can to crush us. They've lowered our interest rates to next to nothing. You'll get nothing on your savings. They've borrowed money and printed money, and they've done these things in the sense that eventually your economy will collapse. Because when the economy collapses, they get power. On that note, let me say this. On that charter amendment, let me explain something, and I want all the Tea Partiers here to think just clearly with me just for a moment. If you want a red flag, I won't talk deeply into that, but if you want a red flag, it is never okay to take state power and give it to the federal government, and it is never okay to take local power and give it to state government. Wherever you stand on charter schools, listen, charter schools are great where they're great, and they're very poor where they're very poor. School choice is something we believe in. But friends, I am telling you, you never, ever want to give elected officials the power to do what they're asking to do right now. On our deficit, we've been lectured on our deficit from the Iranian president. He said, how can a nation who has $16 trillion in debt, how can a nation call themselves a superpower? I've seen it happen. Jobs lost. Friends who've lost their jobs. Friends who've lost their income. I've had to fire people, and I've had to lay them off, and I've had to do things I never thought I would have to do before. And friends who were tears in their eyes, who knew they had to pay bills at the end of the day, and just telling them, we're losing jobs. We're losing jobs. And not because anybody has sent their jobs overseas. When America has the highest corporate tax rate in the world, why wouldn't they leave? And so we sit and we watch, and we wonder what's coming. We wonder if there's anything in the world that we can do to change any of what's happening around us. I don't want to be one that stands before God one day. And God says, I had a great experiment. That great experiment looked like this. The angels come to me and give me poetic license, but the angels come to me and they say, I want you to create a nation where you give them what they can have, that you give them the need, the funds, that you give them the ability, the blessing to be the greatest nation on earth, and I bet they'll follow you then. I bet they'll follow you then, and they'll follow you to the end. And God says, fine. And He brings every nation, He brings every creed, He brings every race to this place. He brings them and He sits them in a nation, and He says, I'll give you everything you could possibly want. I'll give you everything you could possibly need. And He did it, but yet we turned away. We turned our backs. And so now we wonder, what's going on? What can we do to change all of it? But we have a president that walks around apologizing, putting regulations on business and destroying us, and at the same time apologizing around the world for who we are. America has been the greatest, the richest, the smartest, the hardest working, the most giving. Folks, you want to help business? Let me tell you how we help business. You drill for oil. You dig for coal. You frack for oil. You build refineries. You build nuclear plants. You build pipelines. You lower taxes on the business owner. You do all of those things, friends, because wind energy is junk. Solar energy is junk. If you want to light the sidewalk around your house, you go right ahead. But friends, we've got to run a country, and the country is run on those things that we already use. Do them, and do it quickly. We can do it, folks. We can do it. Every war where we've been seeing devastation, America has been there to help. Every time the world would have catastrophe, whether it be hurricane or tsunami, America has been the one to be there. Time and time again, we've picked up pieces that have been broken. Time and time again, we've picked up people that have been broken. We have no need to be ashamed, and we have no need to be apologizing to the rest of the world. So you want me to apologize? He wants me to apologize. Sure, I'll apologize. You really want me to apologize for being the strongest nation in history? You want me to apologize for being the richest nation in history? You want me to apologize for being a godly nation? You want me to apologize for sending our men and women to fight in wars and then to be kicked out of those nations and hated because we saved them? You want me to apologize for protecting people and protecting people for the lives of our loved ones? You want me to apologize for leading the world in medicine and technology? You want me to apologize for being the most giving nation in the world? You want me to apologize for being a God-fearing nation? No way, Hussein. Not going to happen. Our children, our grandchildren are depending on us. My youngest son, Knox, who's 11 years old, folks, he used to love professional fake wrestling. He used to love it. Daddy, can we watch it? Can we watch it? We'd have to turn that garbage down just so he couldn't hear anything on it. But he'd watch those guys wrestling, and he'd watch them fight. And there was a guy on there, his name was The Rock. And he'd always come in there, and the first thing he would say is he'd say, "Finally, The Rock is back in Atlanta." But folks, I have some finallys for you here today. As a business owner, as someone who's losing jobs and losing employees and losing valuable time in a country where things are falling apart, I have some finallys. Finally, we're only a couple of weeks from getting rid of this chump. Finally, we have the opportunity to tell the world we will remain free. Finally, we can tell socialists what to do with their power. Finally, we can take back our businesses and our banks. Finally, we can push back against administration that uses our Constitution for toilet paper. Finally, we have the chance to leave our homes and cut our ties with the Socialist Party. Finally, we can black the eye of redistribution fanatics. Finally, we can stop this Venezuelan-style dictator from executive orders that violate our freedoms. Finally, we can get back to growing business, back to lowering taxes, back to restoring freedom, back to revering our Constitution and believing in America. Finally, we can take back America and send Barack Hussein packing. Friends, I ask you today to look around. I ask you to look around and think about 5 people that ought to be here. And when you leave this field today, you tell them the field should have been full with them. My 11-year-old son, who's my youngest, begged me to stay home. I'm going home to play with him, don't worry. But he begged me to stay home. He said, "Dad," he said, "we've been to so many of these things. We've been to so many. Just stay." And I looked at him and I said, "I'm going to be back. I'm in just a couple hours, buddy. I'll be back." Friends, the soccer games can wait. The baseball games can wait. The football games can wait. All that can wait. We have a country falling apart and businesses falling apart all around us. And I ask you today to join with me in making sure that people get to the polls, in making sure that people get out and fight for what they believe in. God bless you, and God bless the United States of America.
Thank you. Was that good? Yes, that was good. That was good. We had a sign contest. If you got a sign, hold it up. Where are the signs? All right, we got signs through here. Okay, these are homemade signs. The other ones are good. I have to admit that Romney sign really looks good. Okay, for those who did homemade signs, we've decided this. There's not a winner. They're all winners. And if you'll go by the booth, you can get a free T-shirt. If you have a homemade sign that you made, you can get a T-shirt. Is that all right, Cindy? All right? She says okay, even though I didn't give too much clearance on that. All right. Let me tell you what. Do we make a difference? Are we making a difference? I think we are. I think there's some things going on when you look around the country that are happening. It's because patriots are getting involved. People are getting involved as never before. It's not about politicians. It's not about parties. It is about people getting involved in what's going on. And here's what I want to tell you. If we look around the country and look at Wisconsin and look at the schools, what did we see? We saw a change of what's been going on. We looked in our last election. How many of you T-Splosh? How many of you knew what the T-Splosh was? Guess what? The city of Atlanta spent $8.5 million. And you know what? We didn't have anything near that kind of money. But the people spoke. Government doesn't know what to do when the people speak and when the people say no. We need to learn to say no more often.